Hello, everyone. Are we good to go on the Zoom? Everything's good sound? Okay, awesome. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to this final session of the Arcane School Conference in New York. It's so great to have all of you. Very few new faces, but most people were here yesterday as well. So, welcome back, and welcome for the first time to all of you who are here for the first day. Yesterday was a very full and fruitful day. We heard about the restoration of the mysteries, about the Christ's last message to his disciples. We heard about invocation, a bit about science and the mysteries of electricity. We heard about the doctrine of the avatars. We heard about the new group of world servers, and so much more, of course, in our small group discussions that we had as well. So all of these ideas contribute to this year's conference keynote, which is let the group dedicate itself anew to the service of the coming one and do all it can to prepare minds and hearts for that event. We have no other life intention. Group meditation of the sort that we're engaged in here today and this weekend, through our thoughts and reflections as well as our formal meditations on the keynote, helps to build a reservoir which can be drawn upon for service rendered by and on behalf of the group. This group reservoir is definitely a thought form. It has substance on the plane of mind, but it is more than just concrete information about what the reappearance is and how we can aid. It is a reservoir really of spiritual substance, of redeemed substance of all the planes in which we work, the three worlds of human living. It's a reservoir of light, of aspiration, of joy, of devotion, of expectancy, of hope, and of courage. And so all these qualities contribute to this group thought form. Preparing hearts and minds, as many of us realize, is a living activity. And it requires that the entire shrine of human living be brought into right operation. And so this is not limited just to our institutions and paradigms. Of course, that's where our thoughts normally go to in these sorts of discussions. But it really does extend to the livingness which makes us human beings, that is, incarnated souls, alive and bestowed with the full gamut of divine qualities, which are humanity's special task to see worked out. And of course, the greatest of these divine qualities is love. Love has to do with relationship, as we know, with unification. As we heard yesterday, it leads eventually to synthesis and to at-one-ment. But we have a very interesting occult definition of love as well, which we haven't considered yet this weekend, and that is that love is simply a response to contact. So in the human being, this means understanding, it means inclusiveness, and it means eventually identification, or becoming, as we could also say. In the solar system, this great quality or principle of love is what we call the synthesizing ray. It is therefore the very force of evolution itself. It literally builds the worlds. It holds all forms into cohesion, and it's the great force which eventually perfects all that there is. The Tibetan suggests that one of the revelations which the Christ will bring when he reappears is knowledge of how to wield this great law of love in a manner which today is totally unknown. But perhaps the multifaceted nature of this great principle of love, which is, very germane to this, all of our discussions about the reappearance of the Christ, has something to do with the multifaceted nature of his reappearance. As we heard yesterday, he will come as a world savior, as the head of hierarchy. He will come with his 9,000 initiates, with his masters of the wisdom. He'll also come as an overshadowing of the disciples of the world. He will come as a great teacher of men, and of course, also, perhaps most importantly, as the very principle of the soul itself, as the Son of God, with all the microcosmic and macrocosmic implications of that statement, of that title. But important for us today is that we refocus our attention to our conference keynote, which is very useful in its specificity because it outlines the scope of our work, it outlines the scope of our work as working disciples, our service as working disciples, which is precisely with the hearts and minds of humanity. So for humanity, as we know, he will come as a great spiritual teacher and a great leader. He will guide us into an age which will be based on, at last and for all, spiritual values rather than the materialism which is so prevalent today. This will result in a number of transformations to human living on many fronts, civilizationally. As we know, as we heard some of these yesterday, there will be a new diplomacy which will arise, a new diplomacy based on, a new diplomacy which will initiate a new era of peace on earth, one which is really based on the idea of the true nature of right relationship. It will see the restoration of ancient mysteries, which will bring in a new era of scientific inquiry unbridled by materialist ontologies. There will be the remaking of the religious institutions of the world, and importantly, a renewal of the living spirit of the religious impulse in man. And also importantly, in some ways, most importantly, it will remake the global economy to be organized around a new understanding of supply and demand, this new understanding being based upon the principle of sharing. This principle of sharing being a very consequential principle, one whose beneficence, I think, is greatly underestimated in our world today. But the point, of course, is that humanity itself is also laying the groundwork for these changes, even though they will definitely come with the reappearance in perhaps a sort of final sense. Humanity itself is laying the groundwork, and aided, of course, by that great band of spiritual thinkers and intermediaries, which we call the new group of world servers. And so Christ, like any great teacher, he's going to come to aid humanity and to point the way. And of course, he will create an energetic environment in which humanity's progress upon the path might be hastened. But humanity must still choose the right and move each step forward upon the path of its own volition. And this is precisely where the new group of world servers comes in. For they exist to uphold this vision of the way forward. They exist to help humanity to choose the right, to wield the law of love. They are in many ways humanity's conscience. Perhaps above all, they help us in this difficult time of planetary crisis which we're in today to really discern what is the path of righteousness between all the many competing ideologies, all the many competing pairs of opposites, and to help us to navigate through this sea of glamour. And so I would now like to invite my colleague, Eduardo Gramaglia, to come up and to sound the mantram of the new group of world servers for us. This mantram's really germane to our keynote because it reminds us that the serving group, of course, is of greater importance than any one individual server. And just to remind us, those of us, and inform those of us who don't know, that the New York Center serves all of the Americas, including the Caribbean, as well as East Asia, and we do work in 2 languages. Our conference online this weekend is being simultaneously translated into Spanish. And so in honor of that, Eduardo will be sounding the mantram both in Spanish and in English.
The mantra of the new group of world servers. May the power of the one life pour through the group of all true servers. May the love of the one soul characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the great ones. May we fulfill our part in the one work through self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. Que el poder de la vida una fluya a través del grupo de todos los verdaderos servidores. Que el amor del alma una caracterice las vidas de todos los que buscamos ayudar a los grandes seres. Que cumplamos nuestra parte en el trabajo uno mediante el olvido de nosotros mismos, la inofensividad y la recta palabra.
Thank you, Eduardo. So this year's keynote, as of course we're aware, many of us, really strikes to the heart of the core purposes of the Arcane School, which is above all else to increase the capacity of its students to serve. That imperative for service being very central to all of our training in the school, and really of discipleship in general. And so the school is a discipleship school, and therefore the type of service which it seeks to support its students to render has less to do with the form side of life and more to do with the consciousness or the soul which informs form. The path of discipleship positions the student to work with the underlying energies of the soul and of the plan. And these energies are definitely more powerful than the energies of the lower planes. However, they are only more powerful on those lower planes when they have an adequate vehicle in which to house them. And so therefore, in order for these subtle energies to have more than subtle effects, they must be anchored. And this requires that we as students, as aspiring disciples, remain creatively active in the world of human living, but not beholden to it. Esotericism is essentially the science of redemption. And so that world which needs redeeming is our field of work. As we know, the soul is the middle point between spirit and matter. It is the bridging principle, and it enables the light, love, and power of divinity to act in and upon form, at least in the human kingdom. The soul exists in the individual unit, but at the same time, every soul is one with the soul of all. And this identity of all souls with the oversoul is one of the fundamentals of the esoteric philosophy, and is the basis of all the spiritual mysteries surrounding the Christ principle. Interestingly, it's also said to be the key to understanding the relationship between microcosm and macrocosm. And so on the discipleship path, students are charged with the very difficult task of becoming the soul, of becoming the divine intermediary, and by virtue of this newfound identity, reestablishing the divine circulatory flow between the higher and the lower kingdoms in nature. And so one of the first steps in this great adventure of becoming is to learn to impose the will of the soul upon the lower psyche, the lower nature. This leads to a total reorientation of the psyche as this higher will gradually becomes the motivating impulse behind all of one's thoughts and actions. And so this alignment with the will of the soul gives direction to one's life. It gives newfound purpose, as we know. One develops a greater capacity to love. They develop heightened intelligence, creativity, and a power of agency, which we call sacrificial will. And so this sacrificing will is the quintessence of soul consciousness. It grants freedom from limitation, the selfishness of the lower nature, the personal life. But it's also the basis, the sacrificing will is also the basis of the will to serve. And as such, when it is awakened, it bestows an invocative capacity. And also at the same time, a special responsibility, one which cannot be avoided. And this responsibility of service, as we read in the Tibetan's work, is not truly fulfilled Of course, it's gradually fulfilled in stages, but it's not really truly or ultimately fulfilled until one actually treads the path and finds their place within their group. In this case, their soul group is what I'm speaking about. And consequently, when they find their place within that soul group as souls, they find their place also in this great chain of life and of being and of spiritual energies which comprise our planetary whole. And so in its purest sense, service in the discipleship path has this in mind, and it is service ultimately to the purpose of that great life who brought all into being, this entire planet into being. And this is essentially what we call, for lack of a better term, the will of God, something which philosophically we know exists, but which we are, in a practical sense, in a realistic sense, wholly inadequate to comprehend. But we can, however, strive to cooperate with those evolutionary agencies and forces which are closer in the divine chain of hierarchy to this source. And so by doing so, we assume essentially a mediating role, subjectively on rapport with the higher worlds, while also remaining anchored in the world of human living, right where we are, devoting our talents and our capacities, whatever they are, whatever situation we find ourselves, to the highest good that we possibly can. So the formal requirements of discipleship are pretty well known to those who have studied the work. They're outlined very clearly in the Tibetan's teachings, and so I'm not really going to repeat them all here, but suffice it to say that when one has developed the requisite purity of motive, a measure of freedom from glamour, proven skill in service, most of all, we do earn the right as souls to take part formally in the life of hierarchy and to serve within one of its major ashrams. And the school advises us quite strongly to approach all hierarchical affiliation and initiatory status with utter humility. For the working disciple, the personalities of the masters and the prestige of rank are of absolutely no importance whatsoever. To the working disciple, the masters are known only as custodians of the plan and as centers of great spiritual potency from which the serving group seeks to invoke at any cost. This group having no other life intention. And so I think this is in many ways what the essence of this dedication, which is incorporated into our keynote, but which is also part of the Thursday redemptive meditation on preparation for the reappearance of the Christ, has in mind. It's a soul dedication. It's a hierarchical imperative in a really higher sense. And so the Arcane School exists to help students to aid hierarchy as they see it. Its original aim was and continues to be to provide a body of suitable disciples who can be called upon for hierarchical service whenever there is need. And though naturally some students will become accepted disciples and eventually thereby take their place formally within the ashram of a master, the true aim of the school is not, nor has it ever been, to teach students how to become accepted disciples. Students who come to the Arcane School do not seek to be taught or told what to do, and nor do they need to be. They are mature souls, intelligent and free agents, and the school exists simply to support these students to live and to work as disciples live and work. And this means, first and foremost, that service is the primary intention in their life, and just as important, that this service is self-directed, self-chosen, and self-imposed. No one ever steps onto the discipleship path except under the pressure from their own soul. And this is the only authority which the school ever asks its students to respect. And in the same manner, we must remember that we're told the masters never even directly tell their disciples actually what to do or how to serve. They don't go about giving assignments to their ashram. Disciples, therefore, are asked to, disciples, therefore, must, in their training, strive to learn how to train themselves to perceive hierarchical need so that they can contribute, to formulate their own program of service, and to either join with others or to attract others to fulfill and to implement these plans which they have intuited or laid out. And so this requires, among other things, a sense of right proportion. It requires, of course, self-knowledge, total self-knowledge, so we are told, paired with, at the same time, the ability to utterly and totally forget the self. It requires a developed mind in both its higher and its lower aspects. And so therefore, essential is some sort of training which supports this. And occult meditation is what at least the Arcane school offers. It develops, as we know, occult meditation also develops the esoteric sense and the capacity for this higher vision and hierarchical contact. In the latter stages of the school, training in the conscious use of the Antakarana naturally grows out of all previous esoteric work, and this goes sort of beyond meditation as formally understood. This is what brings in a measure of triadal energy, which makes group invocation in the highest sense possible. But at every stage of the training, this is especially in the Arcane school I'm speaking about, at every stage of the training, and to me this is something I'm frequently, I've been in the school for many, many years now, and I'm still so amazed sometimes when this sort of realization, reviewing through the schoolwork, and I'm frequently amazed at how inextricably linked throughout every stage of the pedagogy is meditation and service. There's never separated into two separate things. They're always inextricably linked. And I think this is really the essence of what makes the school a true discipleship school. This, of course, as we know, in the early stages of the school, there are two things which you try to make interlinked, but it's the Antakarana work later in the training where they actually become, one path. Essentially, they become one thing as the disciple himself or herself becomes the path. They become the path of service. They become also, the soul. And so today the discipleship being developed has as its main objective the development not of serving individuals, but of serving groups. And shortly before her death, Alice Bailey addressed the headquarters group of the Arcane School, and she asked them this very important question. The question she posed to them was, how can we change the Arcane School from a group of students into a group that the hierarchy can more effectively use? And so I'd like to challenge, this being an Arcane School conference, even though it is open to the public, but challenge Arcane School students especially to maybe take this into their reflection throughout the remainder of our conference period today. Because this orientation to sort of the group imperative, the group responsibility, and what it is, how the group is moving forward, I think should be a major factor in our thinking as a group. So thank you all for suffering through those remarks. So to get on to the good part of the conference now, I'd like to invite my colleague and trustee, Barbara Valacor, to come up, and she's going to lead us in the Thursday meditation on preparation for the reappearance of the Christ.
Thank you, Michael. So I think we're all familiar with the first three suggestions on the form, so I won't read those. And when we get to the stage 2 at the mantra, we'll use the we form. Achieve a positive and intended personality quietness. And formulate clearly to yourself in your own words the answers to the following questions. As a member of the new group of world servers, what is my specific fixed intention at this moment of dedicated contact with my soul? Is my concentrated and expressed personality purpose in line with hierarchical intention, as far as I'm permitted to know it? Have I, in my own personal daily life, earned the right, because of definite effort, not so much because of success, to stand with those servers who are now undertaking the work of preparation? Answer these three questions in the light of the soul. And say together with emphasis, forgetting the things which lie behind, we will strive towards our higher spiritual possibilities. We dedicate ourselves anew to the service of the coming one, and will do all we can to prepare men's minds and hearts for that event. We have no other life intention. Visualize the world situation as best you can, and in terms of your major world interest, and with what knowledge of world affairs you may possess. See the mass of people everywhere glowing with a dim light, and here and there points of brighter light, where members of the new group of world servers and men and women of spiritual intention and of loving hearts are working for their fellow men. Then visualize through the creative imagination the vivid light of the hierarchy streaming towards humanity and slowly merging with the light which is already in people. Say the first stanza of the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. Ponder on the reappearance of the Christ. Realize that no matter by what name he may be called in the many world religions, he is still the same great identity. Reflect and speculate upon the possible results of his appearance. Say the second stanza of the invocation. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. Endeavor to concentrate your fixed intention to serve and to spread love in your surroundings. And realize that insofar as you can do these things, you are attempting to blend your personal will with the divine will. The third stanza. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. Consider practically what you can do in the coming week to further the preparation for the coming of the Christ. Sound the Om 3 times, dedicating the threefold personality to the work of preparation.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, everyone. So for the rest of this afternoon's program, or the first half of our conference today, up until like about 3:20, 3:30, we are going to have two speakers present on the theme of preparing minds and hearts for that event. And then that will be followed by a small, we'll break out into small groups and have a small group discussion period after that as well. So we can allow perhaps these ideas which are going to be shared to sort of help to inspire some creative thinking and lead the way into that small group discussion. And so we have first Maya Costley, who will be speaking on organizing, vitalizing, and opening the will petals of the group Egoic Lotus. So Maya, go ahead and come on up.
Thank you, Barbara. I feel very privileged to be able to speak right after us doing that meditation together. And I was really thinking about, now we're coming towards the end of the conference, and it's been really wonderful to see all these similar threads coming through everybody's talks from that group meditation that we've been doing together. So I was particularly inspired by the fact that I feel like my talk is a good representation, or at least I hope it is, of the secretarial workshop theme. So, organizing, vitalizing, and opening the will petals of the group Egoic Lotus. In the reappearance of the Christ meditation, where the conference keynote was derived, we're given a formula to help us prepare human minds and hearts for Christ's return. This formula consists of the techniques of identification, reflection, visualization, invocation, realization, and service. As the esoteric heart center of the new group of world servers, this is how we can work to organize the group mind, vitalize the inner link with the group heart, and open the will petals of the group Egoic Lotus to assist in his reappearance. As esotericists, by practicing and using these techniques, we can also create thought forms of solution that will help to reveal Christ's consciousness within humanity. For truly, it's not a matter of becoming, but of revealing who I am. The 14th rule of group initiation for disciples and initiates states that for the group to reveal Christ's consciousness within ourselves and within the world, we must know, express, reveal, destroy, resurrect. Raise and Initiations, page 286. To know is to remove all doubt within the mind of God's identity as the one life and the one heart, and through this certainty, express this knowing within humanity. This will allow us to reveal Christ's consciousness through a selflessness that destroys all hindrances. And through this act of group service, Christ will be resurrected. These are the techniques that we must now use as a group, as we have never been more prepared esoterically or exoterically to aid in his reappearance, and we are adequate to meet the need. In this year of tension and expansion for the group, we must also strive to overcome our glamour and illusion of separation from the one about whom naught may be said. We can do this by building the group on Takarana and realizing this newer identification with the one life. This will set the note for the Aquarian age. In the Agni Yoga books, it is said that we need to keep reaching towards far-off worlds. This need for a continual striving towards our highest conception of self draws us forward towards a synthesis with that life. A new paradigm is emerging that will be world-shattering in its implications, and it's important to the future of humanity, as important as when we first realized that the sun was at the center of our solar system. The Great Invocation states, "Let light descend on earth. May Christ return to earth. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth." Why must light descend? And where is it coming from? Why does Christ need to return to earth? And why does the plan need to be restored to earth? The restoration of the mysteries is at the heart of this restoring of humanity's knowledge of Earth's relationship to the cosmos and of our purpose within a greater life. We are standing at the very edge of restoring this knowledge of who we are, and by vitalizing this link through our meditation upon the life, energy, and will of God, we will restore the plan on earth. Our awareness of this greater life in which we live and move and have our being will also be restored. Our relationship to the constellations of the Great Bear, of Sirius, and of the Pleiades is like that of the head center to the heart center. These are the points of light, love, and power within the head centers of the one about whom naught may be said, and are the true origin of all life on earth. The great being whose will gives life to our solar system must be restored to his rightful place within our minds and hearts, so that we can restore the divine circulatory flow of his will and his love on this planet. Recognition of our life within his will aid in Christ's reappearance. We are that love because we are a petal within his heart center lotus. The spirit of peace, the avatar of synthesis, and the Buddha are all aspects of his life force, and it is our link to his vital energy that was lost during the fall. The blazing star of Masonic lore also represents the star Sirius, the love aspect of his triadic force, where most of us are destined to be initiated into that great ashram and brotherhood someday. We must now seek to know Earth's purpose as a petal in his heart center, Lotus, and fulfill his will within our collective life. This is the great mystery of Masonry that must be restored within the hearts and minds of humanity. The future world religion will be based on these great truths. It starts with our recognition of he in whom we live and move and have our being. Concentrating our thoughts upon this new paradigm of our true identity and vitalizing our link with his will as we visualize the origin of the group lifeline in our meditations will invoke his life force and energy through this alignment. Through this, we will know, express, reveal, destroy, and resurrect the cosmic Christ on earth. The mantra of the new group of world servers is, may the power of the one life pour through the group of all true servers. May the love of the one soul characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the great ones. May we fulfill our part in the one work through self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. This is the group's goal for the Aquarian age of right human relations and group consciousness. As the ajna center of our planetary logos, we can restore this awareness of our great cosmic being and fulfill our part in his great work. This demands the sacrifice of all previous identifications of self to allow his greater self to emerge within our consciousness. What petal in the heart center lotus of the one about whom not may be said does earth represent? What then is earth's purpose within his greater life? How can we know this purpose and play our part in his greater work? The will petals of the heart center lotus are the will to sacrifice through knowledge, the will to sacrifice through service, the will to sacrifice through the utter sacrifice of all forever. Treatise on Cosmic Fire, page 824. Invoking this will take the strenuous and abnormal efforts of men. Through this, the group will become radioactive, and radiation will be produced. Etheric webs will then be destroyed, and higher head centers will increase in their activity. Various triangles can then become vivified. By doing this, we will build the group on Takarana and aid in realizing our purpose within the cosmos. This will bring forth the new yoga. This yoga, fiery in nature, will vivify, clarify, burn up, and destroy all thought forms that no longer serve the plan. It will demand that we dedicate ourselves anew and sacrifice all that stands in the way of this purpose. This is the next stage for the group and humanity. The reappearance could be seen not only as the return of one, but three Christs or avatars: the planetary, the systemic, and the cosmic. Each is an aspect of the one about whom not may be said's life, as he expresses it on all three of these levels of his being. Through identification with his life, a synthesis with his will be the result for the group and for the world. The Gayatri describes this: O thou, in who givest sustenance to the universe, from whom all things proceed, and to whom all things return, unveil to us the face of the true spiritual sun, hidden by a disk of golden light, that we may know the truth and do our whole duty as we journey to thy sacred feet. Let us strive now to realize this higher spiritual possibility of our service to the coming one and to God, in which we truly are but a part, first within ourselves, then throughout the world, the solar system, and then the cosmos.
Thank you, Maya. So now I'd like to invite Frank Jones. Frank is going to speak on preparation for the return, world requirements, and individual contributions.
So we all know that Christ has never left us, and has always been working for us through the spiritual hierarchy. He's overshadowing us, stimulating our spiritual consciousness and humanity's spiritual demands. But how and when will Christ reappear in physical form, in the consciousness of the masses? According to the Tibetan's writings, Christ came to a great decision around April of 1945, in which he announced that he decided to emerge again into physical contact with humanity. And it was at that time that Christ put forward the Great Invocation. The events of that year, including the end of World War II, the dropping of the atomic bomb, the forming of the United Nations, indicate that 1945 was indeed a significant year in human history and a response to a great release of energy at that time. Yet this was 80 years ago, and we are still waiting for a physical reappearance. According to the Tibetan, there are two primary factors that will determine the timing of Christ's reappearance. First, the timing of the reappearance will be influenced by higher spiritual cycles, by the will of God, by the impact of energies that we cannot possibly comprehend. But secondly, however, and most important to us, the timing of the reappearance will largely be influenced by humanity itself. The idea that the timing of Christ's reappearance will be determined by both the will of God and by humanity indicates that this will be a process of invocation and evocation, much like the process of spiritual development that each of us undergoes as an individual. The will aspect is the driving and purifying force. It is evocative and works downward, shaping the physical world to divine purpose. Spiritual desire is invocative, working from the material world upward. We as individuals experience cycles of tension and confrontation with our material desires. We are responsible for invoking our higher selves. The same goes for humanity. It is the mass magnetic appeal of humanity which produces our evolution on a higher turn of the spiral. Just as a disciple experiences a major conflict between the dweller on the threshold and the solar angel, so does humanity. Perhaps the return of the Christ is like the building of the Antakarana. The building of the Antakarana requires invocation from the soul-infused personality and an evocative response from the spiritual triad. The process of the return of the Christ is similar. Humanity must be in a proper state of invocation in order for the Christ and hierarchy to respond. So what can we do as individuals to facilitate Christ's return? If you read much of the Tibetan's writings about the return of the Christ and the approach of the hierarchy, you will be struck by the emphasis on two things. First, the responsibility placed on humanity to lay the groundwork. And second, the emphasis on the practical and group nature of the immediate work that must be done. The Tibetan cites three hindrances to the reappearance of the Christ: the inertia of the average aspirant, second, a lack of courage, and third, individual materialism. The problem of inertia originates in a kind of depression, a sense that we are surrounded by a failing humanity. We're bombarded by negative news media and polarizing social media that sometimes makes it seem as though humanity's future is hopeless. We all desire to do good and contribute to a better future for humanity. But it often seems that our individual contribution is minuscule and futile. So instead, we focus on families and work, maybe make a financial contribution here or there, participate in a volunteer opportunity. And those are all good. But inertia has to be transformed into activity. We must find a way to translate our spiritual desire into action. We can use meditation, in particular, to focus our energies, raise our consciousness, strengthen our sense of optimism and love for humanity. Through individual and group meditation, we can vitalize thought forms that aid in humanity's evolution. We can assess our daily living to look to eliminate those activities and habits that impede our spiritual progress. And we must never discount the power of a single act of goodwill and how contagious that can be. It is sometimes a lack of courage that feeds inertia. The quality of courage, as cited by the Tibetan, has a quality that must be developed in all of us. The book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy, is a compilation of the writings, as most of you know, from the late 1930s and late 1940s, during the onset and resolution of the Second World War. If you've read this book, you might have been struck, as I was, by the tone of the Tibetan's writings, particularly during the peak of the war. His writing became, for him, I think, somewhat emotional as the war dragged on. He emphasized the need for action and criticized the tendency of spiritually minded people to sit on the sidelines. The basic message was that we cannot sit and meditate on a mountaintop while humanity goes through conflicts and crises that are part of our evolutionary process. While meditation, as a thought form building exercise, has real true power, we still need to get involved and take action on the physical plane. We're on the physical plane for a reason. Sometimes this takes us out of our comfort zone and requires courage. Perhaps we might feel the need to say something that could possibly jeopardize a friendship or get involved in an activity that's contrary to our introverted nature. Third, the Tibetan describes money and individual materialism as a key obstacle to Christ's return. This, of course, is the reason behind our Sunday meditation on attracting money for hierarchical purposes. Money is energy, as you know. Our individual and group materialism diverts this energy away from hierarchical priorities. Consider a few statistics. In the US, we spend over $37 billion a year on candy, $250 billion on alcohol, and approximately $730 billion on leisure travel, roughly $1 trillion for those three things. Individual charitable donations total approximately $320 billion, which, while significant, is only about a third of what we spend on those three things. And in full disclosure, I look at my own spending patterns. I can't say that my own individual contributions are that much different, to be honest, except I don't eat candy. Once in a while. So there are actions that we can take as individuals, but perhaps the most important thing to realize is that we are not alone. Excuse me. We as individuals can work through groups of like-minded people to transform our individual efforts into a powerful force. There is strength in numbers, and we leverage our individual spiritual intention by working through groups. You may have heard of the intention experiment, an interesting word, decided to use intention. The intention experiment is a collaboration with a team of scientists demonstrating the power of group thought. Multiple experiments revealed demonstrable results in the ability of groups using focused thought to influence physical life. The experience demonstrated the power of group thought to impact things such as speeding up the growth rate of plants, facilitating the healing of PTSD patients, reducing rates of violence in war-torn areas. As you know, thought is energy, and many of the obstacles which impede the reappearance of the Christ are group thought forms that feed the separatism and materialism of our modern world. Attitudes of nationalism, racism, and political polarization are powerful group thought forms that must be mitigated through the group thinking and group meditation of spiritually minded individuals. The masters work through united group thinking of their ashram. It is this integrated group thought that affects changes in human consciousness. Collective thought is a part of the work of the new group of world servers to intensify the will of humanity to create a world condition that is conducive to the return of the Christ. While we each have individual responsibility for right thought and action, we cannot do it in isolation. We must stand with others who have similar goals and develop conscious group work which aids in Christ's return. We can work within a network of other disciples and aspirants, and with groups to educate and prepare the public for the reappearance. So we all stand in a difficult position at the center of the cross. We try to maintain contact with the vertical view, the vision of the plan, while working in the horizontal world of our fellow humans. But we must not be discouraged by the difficulty of the task. We will be successful through right thinking and right action that is based on our faith that good will always triumph, and it will. The will aspect works through love, and by working together in a spirit of love, we can create that magnetic force that will invoke the Christ and his co-workers to bring this great approach to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Maya and Frank. Those are both so very wonderful talks. I feel very well prepared now for our small group discussions. And so this is an opportunity. We've been sitting a while now. We can actually, get up and move just a bit. But I'll first just a brief instruction to the Zoom audience, because we do have our Zoom. We haven't forgotten about you all. I'm motioning to the camera in the back of the room. So we'll send all of you into breakout rooms. We have some moderators prepared. Hopefully there's enough for all of the rooms. We will also send the Spanish participants into a Spanish breakout room online. And so if you want to go into a Spanish breakout room, you need to put the ES before your name, and we will reassign you to that room. And so the group discussion that we're going to be having in the room here, we'll just divide up into groups of 7 or so, and so that'll be pretty straightforward. So just to orient everyone online and in person to the discussion topic that we're going to be investigating, we can perhaps bring it up on the screen here as well when we can. It's going to be really, as I said, the theme is preparing minds and hearts for this event. So you all will have received probably some cards, or if we're going to pass those out, I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, they're going to pass out some cards with us on it, and online we'll have it on the Zoom, but I'll just read them briefly. These are a few we've prepared. It's just like a way to get you started if you sort of need like something a jumping off point. Why the necessity to prepare? Why are we preparing? What practical changes in human consciousness and relationship must humanity make in order to rightly play our part in this spiritually momentous event? What changes to the social structures and forms of our society are needed? Are there changes to the form, or are these purely transformations of consciousness? And of course, what is the special responsibility of those who find themselves within the heart center of the new group, those people who are drawn to working esoterically, subjectively? And so I will now send off the Zoom room, and everybody here, you can always rearrange your chairs, just divide up into groups of 7 or so. We don't have to be exact. Mikhail, you can fill in anybody online if you'd like, if I've missed anything. We will spend, I would say, about 20 to 25 minutes. We can come back at 3, let's say 3:25, 3:30. And we'll come back together then for the, so. All right, off we go. I know such a short time, but we do have to sort of conclude now our small group discussions. We will be moving now into a break. So theoretically, you could still keep talking for a bit, but then you would miss your break. Do keep in mind we are having a larger panel this last session. When we come back, we'll have a visualization and then a large panel, and that will really include a lot, hopefully more Q&A, with everybody. We'll bring in the Zoom, the audience. So, thank you. So we'll come back in 15 minutes. Let's say 3:45. Oh yeah, no, we'll move the chairs back when you can to a normal setting so they're facing the front of the room. Yeah, thank you.
Because the churches are standing by those. So the churches are standing by those literal gods. Literally, it's going to come when you tell them, but why that method? He said, somehow it's magical and do many things. No, listen. Why do you think wisdom? For that to be sufficient, the most sufficient. No, you don't go that way. Oh, people, yes. Oh, recognize. Yes, will be some. So cute. Yes. Yes. It's the Unitarian. Their reverend ministers who are members of the discipleship. There was a Catholic priest who was a member of the Tibetan group. The Catholic priest. Yes. Was, eventually he left the church. Yes. Those individuals are exactly. It's getting better. It's getting more. And widespread education also is because when the people are educated, you start talking to them, you face them with a reasonable argument, and they start to think. This is too intelligent. How can I say no? They struggle with it, but it's going to be too
Near my arm, it's when I suddenly what I'm in the ancestral mind, so I feel like I'm kind of the youngest is 27.
All right, thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and make our way back in, please, and take our seats. We can move into the final segment of our session today.
Something I might use.
So now to recollect ourselves, we're going to begin with a brief visualization on the esoteric function of the heart center of the new group of world servers. And at the close, we're going to sound the great invocation, and simultaneously, my friend and coworker, Judy Harrison, longtime esotericist, will be signing the great invocation. So this visualization is called the cosmic heart, the heart systemic, and the little heart of humanity beating in rhythmic unison. So let's stand as a group within the heart center of the new group of world servers in identification with the world esoteric group of trained occult workers from all spiritual traditions motivated by love. Now let's reflect on the fact that the group acts as one of the primary mediating centers within the life of the Logos, receiving inspiration and impression from hierarchy and distributing illumination to humanity. Holding the attention on the plane of mind, stand focused within the heart center of the new group of world servers. Visualize the group as two whirling mandalas of organized rhythmic energy, one facing up, drawing down inspiration from the spiritual hierarchy, and the other facing down, lifting and redeeming the substance of the three lower worlds. Recognize that this establishes a vertical line of ascending and descending energies through the central point of the mandalas. Now visualize the energies generated by the whirling mandalas extending in a horizontal line, again from the center of the cross, outward in both directions, between the mandalas, forming a cross of radiating energies. Focus the group mind at the center point of the cross. And from that point, imagine all in the group together breathing the energies in and out in a steady rhythmic motion, like the motion of the heart. Now visualize spirals of radiant light opening and expanding outwards in 4 directions from the center point of the cross. Standing at the central point, the group continues its rhythmic breathing, lifting energy from below and upwards towards hierarchy, breathing in hierarchical energies and distributing them outwards into the world. Now from the central point of the cross, illumined by the light of the group, project the bridge of light to the Christ upon the higher levels of the mental plane. Visualize the Christ energy descending to sit at the central point of the cross, merging with the illumined mind of the group. Pause and reflect on the role of the Christ in bridging heaven and earth. Now, using the creative imagination, visualize the light of the great star Sirius descending upon the Christ, spreading a blue-white light, radiating to all four corners of the earth. See this radiation reaching into the hearts and minds of all people, spreading to all the four corners of the earth, irradiating the planetary etheric network with the energy of cosmic love. See this web of living light touching and relating the whole of humanity and extending to include all life forms, healing, soothing, and strengthening. And now we'll close with the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you, Judy. That was really marvelous. It's so rare that when we, at the end of our meditations and visualizations, you actually open your eyes and say the mantra with your eyes open. So that was at least for me personally, it was a great experience of keeping that inner alignment, and then with the eyes, in the physical world, and then with your beautiful, I saw you from behind, but still I could see the signings. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. So now we come to the final portion of our Arcane School Conference, in New York anyway. So we've organized a final panel to really just put a capstone on everything that we've done thus far this weekend. My experience with past conferences is that by the end of the conference, everybody's always brimming with so many ideas and things that they want to share. And so we've organized this panel just to sort of capitalize on that sort of rich field of group thought which has been prepared. And so we have Maya Costley and Frank Jones, as you know from their talks just earlier today, Kathy Newbern, and also Emmanuel Sacafeo, who works with the New York headquarters of the Arcane School. We also have Catherine Cruz joining us online. Catherine, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. So we'll get you up on the screen in just momentarily. But great, let's grab my notes. So I'd like to start us off with just posing a few questions to the panel. Of course, if you guys have anything specific you would like to share, feel free to just answer your own question, I guess. But then we will, the last half of this remaining, I guess, 35 minutes or so, we're going to open it up to all of you to share what you'd like, your thoughts on the keynote in a manner that you think helps support the group thought form that's being created. Of course, those of you that are online on Zoom, also please welcome to raise your hand at that point as well. So I'm just going to start by opening the discussion on the role of groups in preparation. So many people are familiar with the units of service work of the Lucis Trust. These are small groups, as small as maybe even 3 people throughout the world who are dedicated to, engaged in. Usually it's the full moon work is how it starts, but also the goodwill work as well. And so I just wanted to, I guess, pose to anybody on the audience, what role do you see these sort of small groups throughout the world playing in the preparation for the reappearance?
Is this on?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing that just jumped to mind, since we're talking about the reappearance, is that, Christ said, wherever 2 or more are gathered, there I am. So I think, any group you're involved with, if it's more than just you, is that opportunity. And I think we all explore different groups, whether it's a triangle, whether it's a family group, whether it's our nation, whether it's a working group of service, any group, there's that opportunity to bring the Christ energy in through whatever work you're doing.
Thank you, Maya. Yeah, so much of our service work or our work as esotericists, as Arcane School students, as aspiring disciples, sort of, as I said earlier, is focused on merging meditation with service. And so people so often, we reflect on that Thursday meditation, the final part, what practical things can you do this coming week for the reappearance? And I remember when I was first in the school, using that meditation, sort of concrete-minded, I was like, well, I guess I could deliver pamphlets or something. I don't know, which it's not a bad thing. Of course, that's not a bad thing to do, but it's, what we're looking for is something more than just like exoteric activity, and yet it has to be anchored in that world. And so something like a unit of service, it provides that opportunity for students that are just looking to fulfill that responsibility. Sorry, Bart, we'll go to the audience participation a bit later, yeah? So does anybody else have anything else to share? Kathy?
Well, I just remember a line from the Tibetan that I think it demonstrates the power of small groups. We often think we have to have some large group or some exoteric, as you said, activity. But he says that the potency of the energies that are coming in are such that they need anchor points of distribution on the physical plane. And that these small groups he calls them, they are emitting verdure, livingness and green energy to the whole etheric network of the planet. So it's just an idea to just gather together at the full moon, and to just, we're so used to going to webinars, which is great, but there's something important about linking up on the physical plane and spreading this living energy throughout the planet.
Yeah, also,
Emmanuel, sorry, just put the microphone a little closer. There we go. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
continue on the same idea. The new group of well servers have been told to
You can hold, if you want to hold the mic.
to hold the vision before the eyes of the people. For where there's no vision, the people perish. And what is that vision? Is the vision of establishing right human relationship. That's the major work of the Christ when he appears. However, when there are so many smaller groups all over the world, villages, towns, small cities, big cities, then it creates a widespread. If you think of them as centers of light and love, there will be all these wonderful many lights all over the place, emitting light, radiating love, the magnetic nature of love, and the radiatory nature of the will will be reaching each and every person, including the environment, the animals, the plants, and even the minerals. So the smaller groups are so important. And today we have so many of them, which is indicative, according to the Tibetan, that the Christ has reached the astral plane, and it will manifest as many groups forming all over the world. And it's happening.
Just to kind of follow up on what Emmanuel said, just in simple terms, to me, it's just an example of small groups. Well, smallest group is the individual, right? But goodwill is contagious. And, you think about, I don't know, it was a few years ago, the pay it forward kind of movement, that, one act of goodwill spreads, and you're spreading energy all over the place, just with simple acts.
Can I jump in at
Yes.
this point? I think this conversation is really important, and thank you, Emmanuel. It is so easy to be discouraged. The task ahead seems so overwhelming, the news media, and to be reminded of, as Maya said, when 2 or 3 are gathered together, there's potency in that. And not to be diminished by thinking that we can't start a great movement, in our living room. So let's remind ourselves when we watch the evening news that the 2 or 3 who come together to work in Christ's name for his preparation have great value. And there are a lot of us, and there's potency in the small group and in the group of groups. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Catherine. I think we can leave Catherine up there because she's part of the panel. Okay, great. You guys are working on it. That just to make sure. Yeah. Okay. So, I was about to say though, I just lost it. Oh dear. Where'd it go? It's coming. It's right outside my skull, and it's gone. Okay. There it went. I remembered. Yes. So, thinking through I'm thinking back to my own early time in the school, this feeling this sort of sense of responsibility to gather in groups, you're hearing about the units of service work, and what really were the limitations that I felt that I came up against, when not knowing anybody else in Alice Bailey work, never having met a single person who read the Alice Bailey books, what sort of barrier there was to getting that going. And it was all 3 of these that Frank brought up, these 3 hindrances that Frank brought up in his presentation. That sort of sense of inertia, sort of sense of hopelessness. Oh, well, how can I even, it's just not possible. Sort of lack of courage, to actually reach out and initiate some creative activity. And then sort of sense of materialism, how can we work with something so spiritual in the material world? And so it's good to keep in mind that sometimes the most important aspects, the most spiritual impulses are also those points at which we're beset by the most seeming limitation as well, almost a sense of barrier to it. So, yeah. Oh, great, we have Catherine back. Thank goodness, okay. All right, so we can, if anybody else, I think we can move on to just a sort of related question that has to do with meditation. And the question basically is, why is meditation such a consequential form of service? And now this question is, meditation is sort of a broad term, and I think here I would sort of mean it to mean it's sort of any subjective work, generally, like that's what we do. Why is that so consequential? Why is obviously this is our work, so that's where we're focused, but I think we also hold this belief that this is not only our responsibility, our dharma, but it's also something which is perhaps in many ways more consequential than exoteric work. So any thoughts from the panel on?
Yeah, actually, because I was thinking there was something else I was going to say before, but this kind of works here too. The Aquarian age, the symbol is the water bearer pouring forth, and we are receivers of energy being poured forth by greater beings, but we also have the responsibility to pour forth what we receive. We're working with energy and force, and meditation is the primary way to do that. And it's a science, so we need to learn how to use this tool, this technique, but I think we also have to be aware of how many different relationships we have. Like integral theory talks about holons within holons, which are like nested hierarchies, where we're connected on so many levels, and it's helpful to be aware of all those different relationships and where you have an opportunity to pour forth. It could be a serving group in your living room, it can be your family, it can be your community, it can be your state, your nation, and then groups like the new group of world servers. So many opportunities, really. It's just a matter of choosing and applying and pouring forth. So have at it, take your pick, have fun.
Also, the intention to collectively come together right now, like we're doing, and the aspiration to serve, focus the group on the plane of the soul. The soul's preoccupation, we are told, is service. So the moment we are focused on the plane of the soul, we are linking for service. This creates a fused and blended aspiration, and the grouped etheric centers are formed as vehicles for unusually tremendous energies which cannot be handled by the individual alone. And also, thinking is meditation.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
When some of the students find it like so difficult what to do, just think. Think about it. Keep on thinking. You are concentrating. You keep it on, it becomes something else. You discover it and own it forever. And because thinking is meditation, one of the first rules given by the Tibetan Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, it says, energy follows thought. We've heard it several times. But that is only one piece of the law. It said energy follows thought. And the eye that is opened by that thought directs that energy in motion. So when we get together like this, it's a mighty eye which is opened, and it directs the energies that becomes available only in group form. It directs that energy in motion. And since we are thinking of the whole of humanity, of the whole world, every aspect of life on earth is lifted up, is healed, comes together, and will lift the whole world.
I think for me, I think kind of what I said is that the group meditation to me is so important because of the group thought forms, and we're surrounded by group thought forms, some not so good. And you know, you need to, I guess you need to match strength with strength. That it's really important to form these positive group thought forms to counter some of the other negativity that's out there, and it's can be powerful.
I think that one of the tools that I like the most is the rhythmic points in the daily cycle, the monthly cycle, the yearly cycle, for when we link up at those points and perhaps use a meditation or a visualization or a mantra and imbue it with our thought, that then our lives become more resonant with the planetary energies that are always available to us. So I think it's our responsibility to make our lives a meditative vehicle.
And I think too, like Frank and Kathy are saying, we've been given certain thought forms to concentrate the group thought on, you know, hierarchically sort of assigned. So like Kathy's saying, you know, this building that group thought form by regular and rhythmic empowering of it, the more the better. You know, that's what we're here to do. And also I think too with, like Frank's saying about thought forms that maybe aren't so good, I like, my working definition for evil is the good of the past. I don't know if that was something DK said. Anyway, you know, like Piscean thought forms, they're on their way out. They were good at the time. They were useful. They were needed. Now we're bringing in new thought forms. So we have to destroy the old and bring in the new. We have to make room in the mental field for these newer energies. And so we have to also be aware of what is and what is not needed so we can move forward.
And the same is true to some degree for the different stages of the path as well. There's some of that which is good on the probationary path no longer becomes the good of the past once you move further and take on further levels of spiritual responsibility. I just don't want us to forget Catherine, who's on a bit separate from us because she's on Zoom. I wanted to move on to another question, Catherine, unless you had something specific to offer on the previous one. Okay, it's a pretty simple one. And with this, I'll also open it up to the audience as well. Of course, in person and on Zoom, but just what advice could you give for the right wielding of the law of love? Whether that's, you know, you could approach the question in an individual sense. How can an individual rightly wield the law of love? How can a group, you know, how can humanity wield that in a sort of racial sense? Do you have any, what would you say? If you needed to give advice, what would you say, Catherine?
I could think about it for a minute. I would like to do that.
Okay, of course, yeah.
Words.
Yeah, of course. We can all just take a moment to ponder perhaps before speaking.
Actually, what I think is that the law of love finds us. We do our meditations, we do our studies, we try to understand. For 2,000 years, we have lived as if Jesus's message was, be nice. And you know what? It's not a terrible thing to be nice. It's just inadequate for what we have, the opportunities that are now on our horizon. And in those early efforts, it seems to me that the law of love finds us, and we suddenly discover the astounding nature of love that's available, that we never imagined before. And then once that happens, we are guided by that and really can't do anything else. Does that make any sense, Michael?
I think so. I think it definitely makes more than a little sense. Catherine, that was beautiful. Thank you. That's perhaps in some ways gets to a point which Maya made in her presentation about the necessity not so much of becoming, but of revealing what's already there, but perhaps not fully manifested or revealed. So, Mikhail, do we have any hands raised on the Zoom?
No, not here.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
I
wait,
forgot to
we
get
got
my.
one.
Oh, you do have one?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, please.
Hi, this is Peter Loxrow. I guess it also ties in with what Kathy shared yesterday. I'm not going to turn on my camera. I'm sorry about that. I turned on my camera yesterday.
That's
but
fine. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. So Kathy, you shared yesterday about love, and I just wanted to also sort of like piggyback on what you said in regards to the fact that the experience of love is the understanding of the universal self. I think that's the dichotomy, is that we sometimes realize or we sometimes forget that there are two aspects of the self, the lower and the highest. My camera is on. Here you go. You guys can see me. I didn't even know it was on.
Oh,
Anyways, so I think the experience of self is that there is the lower aspect of self. We all know that, and there's the higher aspect of self. But when in mind, we begin to experience the self as the universal, we transcend feeling that I am as just that individual. And then I realized also that the ladder, and this is like Jacob's ladder, the ladder that leads us up, excuse me, up or down across this transcendence of the self is desire and intention. So desire tends to pull us down into the lower levels of the I am, while intention takes us to the highest aspects of the self. And so when we're able to go into, when we talk about love, I think the law of love is transcending the lower aspect of the self and clarifying our desires and our intentions. Because when we have desires, it means that we are attributing our existence to smaller aspects of the self. But when we have intention, it means that we understand that there's a deeper reason for our existence. So again, just to sort of like recapitulate the point, is that the law of self is transcending the law of love is transcending the mind of the lower self into the universal self, or the experience of the universal self. So that when I see you, I see me. When I see anybody, or I see the planet, I see myself. When I see the universe, I see myself. When I see anything that exists, I see myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's such an essential point. We have Eduardo in the back. And just to note, just as not for you, Eduardo, for everybody in general, just because we have a lot of people who will want to speak, we just want to make sure to keep just keep what you're going to say, limited to one idea and as concise as possible. It's not to you, it's to everybody. That's what I was saying, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, just a single idea. I don't think that the law of love is something we have to reach out to. We are told that this is a basic law and energy of this solar system, this day of Brahma. So in a way, it's something we have to tune in to what has ever been there. And so we may have tools, we may have the stilling of the mind, meditation, but it's the basic truth of the system. We are that.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of something in the books where the Tibetan was talking about at a crucial time during the Second World War. There was a moment of silence in the hierarchy, and they were asked, I think, by the Christ, what can we do to better help humanity. And then he said that in one voice, they sounded the noontime recollection, which speaks to just what Eduardo was saying. We know, O Lord of life and love, about the need. Touch our hearts anew with love, that we too may love and give. So just saying that and visualizing the energy of the Christ coming through the collective heart center of the group is what the hierarchy determined they could do, to love more. Humanity needs love.
Curtis, I think you had your hand. Wait, just wait for the mic if you could. Yeah.
Yeah, in response to, I think, the first of your questions, but incorporating some of the others, one of the other expressions of groups, of course, is triangles.
Yes.
And we are asked to visualize, as we visualize our triangle, the Christ at the center of every triangle, radiating out the energy to its three members, and then from there outwards. And that is the manifestation of overshadowing and of love.
It is also the Christ, talking about triangles, that actually synthesizes all the triangles that are made. It's an amazing idea that mysteriously all the triangles are synthesized. And this is by the Christ. So it is also invocative of the Christ. And talking about the heart, the Tibetan talks about the law of love as the law that guides the transmutation of desire into love. And then getting to the end of the Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, is giving what seems like a farewell meditation to one of his students. And he mentions the 12 qualities of the heart, but he gives 11. Yeah. And I think the 12th one is love, because the love is a synthesis. It mentions, I can't remember all, it mentions group love, then it mentions humility, then it mentions patience. And it's asking the student to think about these things, meditate upon it. And then he mentions identification. Then he mentions life as part of the qualities of the heart. Then he mentions identification with others. And he mentions sympathy. Then he mentions compassion. Then he mentions tolerance. And he says tolerance is the beginning of intuition, the Buddhic consciousness. Then he mentions wisdom. And finally, he mentions sacrifice. The student that he was giving this meditation to is a student preparing for the third initiation, transfiguration. And he tells him, these are more than they seem.
Thank you. So we'll actually go next to an online hand, and then we'll go over to Sarah and then to Bart. So online hand, please introduce yourself if you could.
It might be me. Oh,
Yeah, yes, that's you. Go ahead.
okay. This is Santana. And I just wanted to say there are many aspects to love. And the first love one ever experiences is as a child. And then as we become adults and have children, it's the love we give our children. But the other thing was I wanted to draw attention to the more we meditate, the more our heart opens. And especially that very simple line in the reappearance meditation of spread love in your surroundings. And I think the more we meditate, the closer we are to divine presence, which is always there in our heart. We're closer to our soul, and that starts to come through in everything we do. If we think of doing everything with light, everything with love, and everything with goodwill. Thank you.
Thank you, Santana. So go to Sarah next.
That was such a good thought. Thank you, Santana, for sharing that. I was thinking about something more mundane than sublime, that we talked yesterday about random acts of kindness and being kind to strangers and how that's contagious and makes people feel happy. But it strikes me that another really important quality of standing in love is also kind of not tolerating behavior that's out of integrity. If we're really loving, a good parent won't let their screaming 3-year-old just fill up on candy. And so sometimes love means saying no. And what I think is really exciting is that there's this word that's very popular today that didn't exist when I was young, called boundaries. And people are all about boundaries. I think this is so exciting, and so that's what I was excited to share with you.
Thank you. Let's go to Bart next.
First of all, this has just been fantastic, and I thank everyone for the ideas. I just wanted to kind of refocus back on the Buddha and the Wesak idea and the realization that the highest form of love is pure reason, and the bringing together of the Buddhic love with the Christ love here at the time of Wesak, and wisdom. The courage to let go of that which hinders the shining of the light, which is what holds us all back. And so just that's kind of it, to include the Buddha in love.
Thank you, Bart. It's an important point. Yeah. If we have, we'll go online. We have one more, and then we'll go to Rose. Okay. Take an online hand next. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Artyom. Nice to meet you. I just wanted to quickly add to that basically when we interact with the world and we face the everyday exchanges and struggles, we kind of always have our certainty about what is right, what is wrong, how it should be. And I just wanted to add this element of a surprise, because there's so many unforeseeable things that are coming into our lives that teach us about love, that realize sense of unity and compassion for others, where we're just surprised that, oh wow, this is actually like that, or like a deeper understanding maybe of a situation, and to always feel that we're not kind of alone struggling to realize love, but that everyone is doing their best to realize this compassion towards each other, and trying to do their work to also kind of work on their lower nature to express the better, the higher in our daily interactions, and to not think of each other as like in a like antagonistic interaction, but more that we're all doing always our best, and make that the starting point for all of our communication and interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Artyom. Let's go ahead and go to Rose.
Hi, thank you. For me, when I think of love, it all goes back to, as we've talked about a lot at this conference, the essential self and that soul within and identity. When you look at another person, it is very, very easy to love them if you look at the life behind the form and the life behind the personality and the connection that life has with yourself and all life and the entire universe. It's just an automatic, instantaneous love. And if we can learn to identify each other instead of with our names and our facial features, but with that life that be inside every person, we would become a much more loving society.
Thank you, Rose. I think we'll go to Steve. No, we'll go to Steve, and then I think after that we'll just go to our panel for any final thoughts that you all may have.
I just wanted to take this conversation about the law of love back to the first question, and this vision of units of service. So in your local community, a tiny little group of people who are learning about group work, not just in abstract and not just as a field of consciousness, but are willing to make an experiment. And so for me, the vision is, it used to be stronger before, but that in my state, I live in New York State, so that in my state, in every major center, there will be a small little group that meets every month for the full moon. From different traditions, maybe, I don't care, but that this rhythm of 2 or 3 making a commitment that as much as possible, we will try to be here at home, and we'll meet maybe in our homes, or we might have a public event, it doesn't matter. But most of my life has been involved in these small groups. And everywhere I've lived, not except for one time, everywhere I've lived, I've been part of a small local group. And to me, that's where you really learn about group work, when you can't call on anyone else. It's the group of you who have to just learn in personality, work together with love, and ensure that the life of the group is centered in need, like humanity needs this. And then this idea of this pulsing group of units of service in every part of my state, or my town, that exist in different traditions, and even in our tradition. Why not?
Thank you, Steve. So unfortunately, we sort of do have to wind things down now, but I'd just like to throw it back to the panel. If there's any final thoughts anybody has about the keynote, about the law of love, about anything. Not compulsory, of course, but yeah.
Well, I think to reiterate this focus that we're having on small groups, I think one of the challenges is inertia, and we all have it. And so in order to have a small group, we have to move, out of our own homes, which we're so used to staying in these days, and we have to move into getting together with others. And it's just that simple, to just try and overcome that inertia and to overcome the thought form of webinars are the only way to meet. Something about physical plane meetings that are really important.
Also, too, a regular rhythmic practice of meditation or some kind of reflection. We're talking about working with energy and force, and through meditation, we focus the mind on certain thought forms. These thought forms enable us to create and destroy, because when we bring in the thought forms of the soul, we are bringing in energies that can help destroy glamour and illusion of separation. We have to do that so that we can radiate that awareness through all that we do. We're transmitters, we're receivers and transmitters of this energy, but it has to come through that regular practice, that alignment through meditation and using the energies of the mind, the thought forms, and channeling that energy.
I just had a thought, not related to the group question, but just the general theme of the conference, Return of the Christ, and maybe think of something that Steve was talking about yesterday, maybe about the withering of the law, and I have struggled with the kind of the paradox that, avatars come when in times of evil exists and mankind is desperate. On the other hand, Christ will only come if humanity prepares the groundwork. And it's kind of a little bit of a paradox, but it reminds me of the opening line of the Dickens book, Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And, you look at us today and we face, a lot of polarization, separatism. We face existential threats, nuclear war, climate change. But at the same time, those threats are forcing us to come together in a way that we haven't before. It's kind of forcing us into improving our right human relations, which is a requirement for the returning of the Christ. So maybe this actually is a good time.
And when the Christ comes, it's been said he's going to bring, he's the avatar of love. And he's going to bring the fire of love. So if that fire of love will be burning the glamours and the Mayas, and will be bringing the whole world closer to God, whose nature is a consuming fire. So this God of love is also God of fire. And when we love, we are actually working with fire. This fire heals, it destroys, and it builds. The Tibetans said this love can actually replace physical tissue in the sick. It is amazing what this love is. And since our system is a system of love, I think it is the most abundant substance in the world. So why are we having such difficulties in the world manifesting it?
Thank you, Emmanuel. And thank you, everyone. It's been a great conference. And so now I'd just like to, of course, thank our panel. You've all done a great job, and thank the audience, everybody in person and on Zoom, for your contributions. And now I'd like to turn it over to Christine for the closing. Yeah. Do you want to sit? You'll stand? Okay. Yeah.
It's been such a wonderful experience to focus on the Christ this weekend. And of course, we have 2 more conferences still to come, one in Geneva on the 18th and 19th of May, and the next weekend, the 25th and 26th of May in London. And you're all warmly invited to attend. I was wondering about what to say in these concluding remarks. We've had such a broad sweep of things to consider. I just found it so difficult. And then I realized that was because there is no conclusion. For our keynote is directed to preparatory work for the reappearance, which of course is very much ongoing. When we were in our questions earlier this afternoon in our little groups, we spoke about the obstacles of inertia and courage. And I've just been reading Nicholas Roerich's book on the heart of Asia. It's quite a strange and difficult book to read, but it's fascinating. But he makes this little story about, I suppose it's a legend, it might be a truth, I don't know, that whenever there are terrible storms in the mountains, these lamas, as their service, go out in the storms and they climb the highest mountain, and there they formulate tiny little horses, and they send them out to help the travelers in the world over the storm. I just thought it was just so amazing. You know, that's what you call overcoming inertia and courage, I would say. Well, I just want to extend heartfelt thanks to all our speakers and to all of you participating at the venue as well for your thoughts, your meditations, the energy you've brought to this conference. But above all, I'd also like to thank the New York headquarters for putting on such a great conference. A lot of work, and it was really appreciated. Thank you. Just a little notice, also to remind you of the upcoming WESAC conference on Tuesday the 23rd. It's going to be here in New York, and it's starting this time at 7 o'clock in order to be linked up at the peak of the full moon. So you're invited to join us if you are in the area, and it'll be held at the New York Theosophical Society at 242 East 53rd Street, New York. You're going to have them up on the panel just now?
It'll be at the end.
Yeah, so if you didn't get that. And of course, you can join online. But also we've got the new moon, the next new moon meeting coming up on Tuesday, the 7th of May, and that's at the Lotus Trust offices in New York, 866 UN Plaza. Does people have to phone for security reasons?
The RSVP, yeah.
Yeah, if you could just email or something to say you're coming, we can make the right security arrangements. And that's also online.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, so we're now going to end this wonderful conference and have another dynamic meditation. Our letting in the light, using the conference keynote for the last time, or the last time at this conference anyway. Letting in the light. Group fusion. We affirm the fact of group fusion and integration within the heart center of the new group of world servers, mediating between hierarchy and humanity. I am one with my group brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forth to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. We project a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy, the planetary heart, the great ashram of Sanakamara, and towards the Christ at the heart of hierarchy.
extend the line of light toward Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. Higher interlude. We hold the contemplative mind open to the extraplanetary energies streaming into Shambhala and radiated through hierarchy. Using the creative imagination, endeavor to see the three planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, gradually coming into alignment and interplay. Reflect on the seed thought. Let the group dedicate itself anew to the service of the coming one and do all it can to prepare men's minds and hearts for that event. We have no other life intention. precipitation. Using the creative imagination, we visualize the energies of light, love, and the will to good pouring throughout the planet and becoming anchored on Earth in prepared physical plane centers through which the plan can manifest. We use a sixfold progression of divine love as a sequence of energy precipitation. Shambhala, hierarchy, the Christ, the new group of world servers, men and women of goodwill everywhere, physical centers of distribution. Lower interlude. Refocus the consciousness as a group within the periphery of the great ashram. In the center of all love I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. We visualize the downpouring spiritual inflow released from Shambhala through the hierarchy and streaming into humanity through the prepared channel. Consider how these inpouring energies are establishing the pathway of light for the coming world teacher, the Christ. Distribution. As the great invocation is sounded, we visualize the outpouring of light, love, and power from the hierarchy through the 5 planetary inlets: London, Darjeeling, New York, Geneva, Tokyo, irradiating the consciousness of the whole human race. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men, Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Until we meet again. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. It's nice. Oh, it's a relief, isn't it? Thank you.
Is the only solution to a bad man with a negative thought
Happy.
a good group?
Oh, yes, it was wonderful.
Relief,
Both
should I
days.
say.
No, both days. It went so well. It was so calm, and it was great. You did an
It's
excellent
hard to
job,
get
Chris.
hard,
Thank you.
you know, to get both days right, isn't it? It's quite hard.
You just never really know how things are going to pan out.
Yeah, just perfect.
Yeah. I mean, this year seemed so much calmer than last year. Last year seemed a little erratic.
Yeah.
Maybe there was more energy because it was right on Taurus. Thank you so much. But it just seemed.
I find that hard too. I find it